Thank you very much. You can have a seat. Okay, so as I had introduced myself, my name is Dr. Winnie, and we are very happy to have you here on this discussion on 60 years of US-Kenya partnership in digital transformation. And just to give you context about this discussion, the Africa Center for the Study of the US, which is part of the University of Nairobi, was founded to facilitate cultural and intellectual exchanges regarding US and Africa relations, particularly for this case, US and Kenya relations. And so we are so glad to be part of this discussion and to facilitate this. And the idea behind, or the thinking behind what we are doing here, is to encourage interaction, not just of the technocrats, the diplomats, but also public. And public diplomacy is at the heart of what we are doing here today. So we're very glad to be collaborating with the US Embassy Public Diplomacy section for this event. And the goal is to encourage further interaction, further engagement between US and Kenya partners. We are very proud as an academic community from the University of Nairobi that we are facilitating such dialogues. And so one of the reasons why we have come to the Kenya School of Government is because we know that that dialogue cannot just happen through one institution. We want to expand our reach. And so today, the University of Nairobi is here, hosted by Kenya School of Government. And I want to welcome our host, the Kenya School of Government representative, to give a warm opening remark to get us started into this conversation. So permit me to welcome Director Vera Obonyo from Kenya School of Government to give her remarks. Thank you. Welcome her with a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gut. Ambassador Professor Bitange Ndemo, the Ambassador of the Republic of Kenya to Belgium and the European Union, Embassy of Brussels, Mr. John Pitts, Economic Counsellor, US Embassy in Kenya, Dr. Bashir Sade, the Assistant Director of ICT and Digital Economy in the Ministry of Information, Technology and Digital Economy, Professor Irake, Economic Analyst at University of Nairobi, and Ms. Magdaline Chepkemoi, the founder and CEO of EldoHub. And ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Director General of Kenya School of Government, Professor Nura Mohammed, allow me to welcome you to the Kenya School of Government this morning. It's a great pleasure to host you here and to have this very, should I say, this auspicious event where we have the US Embassy and Kenya partnership, which we are celebrating for the past 60 years. We do fully recognize as a school also the way we have benefited from partnerships with the US. Right from the beginning of, from the inception of devolution, we have had a lot of support in development of programs and also delivery, both at national and county government. We have received tremendous support also in setting up our Security Management Institute, where we have rolled out, not only have we received infrastructure, but we've also rolled out joint programs, including those for the border management. We've also got a lot of support from the Institute of Gender and Social Development, and generally across very many programs that we have launched as we continue to entrench good governance in Kenya at both national and county government. We have also worked very closely with the University of Nairobi, including delivering the program on Master of Arts in Public Policy. We have used a lot of faculty in carrying out joint programs for training, research, consultancy, and advisory services. And so we celebrate the partnership not only with the University of Nairobi, but also with the US. Allow me to mention, ladies and gentlemen, that we were very privileged last year to have His Excellency the President, Dr. William Ruto, officially open the Regional Center of Competence for Digital Skilling and AI in the public sector. This is a state-of-the-art institution or center that is housed in our convention center And the key purpose of this is to build the capacity of the public service. We have a tremendous target of training 100,000 public servants within the next 3 years. And in order to do that, we are definitely working with partners. And at this point, allow me to also welcome partnership with the University of Nairobi and with the US to support us, even as we take on that huge mandate of training the public service and building their digital skills. And therefore, as we start off this day, you are in the right place. We are the institute that does public, like I mentioned, and AI, and so we are privileged to have you. Thank you very much. I think with those few remarks, I would like to welcome Professor Patrick Maluki, who's the chair of the Department of Diplomacy and International Studies.
Good morning, once again. Good morning. Am I audible? Yes, let me stand on the already established protocol. I recognize all the distinguished guests, senior government officials, industry leaders, scholars, as well as partners. It's a great pleasure this morning for the Institute of Diplomacy and International Studies to be part of this very, very important event where we are going to have a discussion, on matters technology and issues that are very, very close to academic community. Before I give my remarks, I want to recognize the presence of Professor Jack Odhiambo, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. Dean, please kindly come and greet us. All right, thank you so much. So I also want to recognize Ambassador Ndungu, the Director General of the Foreign Service Academy, is among the guests who are here. So I know quite a number of more distinguished guests are about to arrive, but let me just give my opening remarks. It's given me a great honor to be present here today under the auspices of the African Center for the Study of the US, domiciled in the Department of Diplomacy and International Studies, University of Nairobi. And this is in the collaboration with the Regional Center of Competence for Digital and AI Skilling at the Kenya School of Government. We gather at a critical juncture in our shared history, one that reflects on 6 decades of diplomatic, economic, and technological engagement between the United States of America and Kenya. From the early days of bilateral cooperation to the present era of digital innovation, our partnership has continuously evolved, to meet the changing needs of our societies. Kenya has distinguished itself as a prominent digital hub within Africa, harnessing the power of technology to fuel economic growth, enhance governance practices, and uplift the livelihoods of its citizens. The strategic partnership with the United States has been instrumental in this transformation, marked by significant investment in information and communication technology, infrastructure, collaborative efforts in developing supportive policies, and initiatives focused on capacity building across various sectors. This session offers a unique and invaluable opportunity to delve deep into the milestones that have been achieved in this dynamic partnership. It will explore the successful implementation of innovative technologies that have revolutionized sectors such as agriculture, finance, and education, while also addressing the challenges that have arisen along the way, including issues related to cybersecurity, digital literacy, and equitable access to technology. Moreover, as we look ahead, this discussion will illuminate the future trajectory of US-Kenya collaboration in an ever-evolving digital landscape, highlighting potential pathways for continued growth and the importance of fostering resilience in a world that is increasingly reliant on digital solutions. We are privileged to have with us distinguished speakers and experts who will provide insights into key areas such as AI, cybersecurity, digital entrepreneurship, and public-private collaborations. Their perspectives will help us identify strategic avenues to further strengthen this partnership for mutual benefit. I wish to extend my heartfelt appreciation to our organizers, the Regional Center of Competence for Digital and AI Scaling, Kenya School of Government, as well as all our esteemed participants for your commitment to fostering dialogue and cooperation in this very vital domain. With those few remarks, it's my pleasure to welcome you to what promises to be a stimulating and impactful discussion. I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Maluki, and thank you, Director Vera, for your remarks. I see we are keeping time. We are getting straight to what brought you here, the actual discussion. And just a background on the discussion of the day, 60 years of US-Kenya partnership in digital transformation. Now, at the Africa Center for the Study of the US, as we were coming up with this program, the larger program of 60 years, as you know, last year, Kenya and the US celebrated 60 years of diplomatic partnership. And we felt as a center, it's important to reflect on what has the 60 years looked like, yeah? 60 years is a long time, isn't it, yeah? Imagine we've been married for 60 years. That's quite some time. And if you look at a diplomatic relationship like a marriage, it's important to reflect and look backwards and also look at the future. Isn't that right, yeah? So today's discussion is among the 6 other discussions the center is having on the general topic of 60 years of US-Kenya partnership. And so we are so glad to have a very esteemed panel to reflect on this marriage, diplomatic marriage, if I may say, of US and Kenya on digital technology, AI. Yesterday I had somebody ask me, in 1963, was the relationship about AI? So of course it has evolved, yeah? So we want to think about that evolution. And I am so glad to have a very esteemed panel, beginning with our moderator, who's doing a fantastic job at KBC. She is called Stephanie Ayeta. Stephanie Ayeta, as she comes to the front, is an award-winning multimedia journalist at KBC. She might look young, but guys, this is a powerhouse, where she hosts the popular show known as Take on Tech. So she's a tech expert in the media space, and she engages her audience with updates on tech news, innovation, and emerging technologies. She's young, she's doing amazing things. Please, Stephanie, karibu sana. With a round of applause for Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Dr. Winnie. I'm very humbled and privileged to steer this conversation, this important conversation that we're having today. 60 years of US-Kenya partnership in digital transformation. As she has said, 60 years of marriage is a long time. And as I was here, seated here, I was thinking, 60 years, I am barely half of that. And just look at the milestones that this partnership has been able to achieve is no mean feat. So that's why we are here, and it's important for us to have this discussion so that we know where we want to go in the future. Looking at the digital infrastructure, how the digital economy has grown, how the startup ecosystem in Kenya has been boosted by this partnership, it's something that should definitely be celebrated. And I'm glad that we are all here to have this conversation. I am definitely glad that I'm having a great panel. As Dr. Winnie has already mentioned, it's a very rich panel, both in knowledge, expertise, and all that you can think of. So right about now, I'd want to introduce my panelists. And as I do, I want you to give them some warm welcome. All right? So I'm usually in the in the parliament space as well. So for them to confirm that they're together, they usually ask a question. The speaker usually asks a question, and I want to ask that. So now, will as many as are ready for this conversation say aye? Will as many as are a contrary opinion, which I doubt, say nay? Okay, the ayes have it. So I'll go ahead and introduce my speakers and our panelists for the day. I will start with one who's joining us online. That is Professor Bitange Ndemo. He's Kenya's ambassador to Belgium. He has a diverse career in academia, government service, advisory roles, and entrepreneurship. I told you we have a great panelist. He served as a permanent secretary, Ministry of ICT for the Kenya government and professor of entrepreneurship at the University of Nairobi. Professor Ndemo has also served as the chairman of the Kenya Distributed Ledgers and Artificial Intelligence Task Force, which developed the country's roadmap for emerging technologies. So he might be a good person to tell us how do we want to develop this partnership further, even as we look into the future. He has been an advisor and a board member for various organizations, including MIT Artificial Intelligence Policy Forum, and the OECD on artificial intelligence and blockchain. Will you help me welcome him with a round of applause? We are honored to have you, Ambassador Bitange. I will go to the next panelist, one of the other guest. We have Mr. James Potts. He will tell us if he loves to go by Jim. He is the Economic Counselor, U.S. Embassy in Kenya. He arrived in Nairobi in September 2022 as the Economic Counselor. As the leader of the 7-agency economic commercial team in the U.S. Embassy Nairobi, Jim focuses on achieving trade and investment climate reforms that accelerate innovative, sustainable economic growth, and on finalizing major commercial deals enabled in part by reforms. All right, his recent postings include Economic Counselor in Peru and Acting Director of the Western Hemisphere Affairs, Economic Policy and Summit Coordination Office. All right, there is so much to him, but even as he comes on stage, I want to welcome him on stage. One interesting thing is that he speaks Spanish, Portuguese, French, and Slovak with all with a Michigan accent. So we are going to teach him some Swahili today. Yes, yes. So he needs to learn some Swahili. Please welcome him on stage. Yes, you can sit over there. Thank you. To our next speaker in the panel, we have Mr. Bashir Dawesoda, who is the Director ICT Connectivity in the State Department for ICT and Digital Economy, Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy, Kenya. In his current role, he initiates the formulation, implementation, and review of ICT policies and strategies in ICT infrastructure. He is actively involved in the implementation of government ICT projects such as the government core common network, last mile county connectivity project, and digital superhighway under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Will you help me welcome him on stage? Thank you. Our next guest in the panel, we have Professor Irake, who is a distinguished professor at the University of Nairobi and a Fulbright scholar. Since 2009, he has been a columnist for The Standard, offering insightful analysis on economic, technological, and global trends. His research and teaching interests span data science, innovation, and sinology with a focus on the intersection of technology and economic development. Would you help me welcome him to the stage with a round of applause? Our next panelist is Chepkemoi Magdaline, who is a Kenyan tech innovator and entrepreneur with over 12 years of experience in technology, business development, and mentorship. As CEO and founder of EldoHub, she leads initiatives that empower youth, women, and marginalized groups through digital skills training, business coaching, and innovative technology solutions. Her contributions to science, technology, and economic empowerment have earned her numerous accolades, including the Head of State Commendation and the Anita Borg Passiton Award. She has been recognized among the top 25 women in the digital space and the 20 Faces of Science in Kenya. She's a Mandela Washington Fellow, Tech Women Fellow, and Alibaba eFounders Fellow. She's a passionate advocate for STEM and innovation. When you speak of the power of women in tech, please help me welcome her to the stage. Thank you very much. There we have our panelists, and we'd like to take a photo, to have a photo session just before we start, because I understand we might not have everyone by the time we're finishing. So the media team, please have them, and I will welcome the professor to come and all our distinguished guests that are here. Dr. Vera, please also come on stage. Please stand up. Let's all, our distinguished guests, please stand for a photo. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll now start the conversation. Get on with the conversation. I sit. Once again, thank you very much to our panelists for agreeing to be part of this conversation, and to everyone in the audience. We'd want you to be part of this, engage with us. So if you have any questions, we'll give you some time once we're done with this conversation for you to ask our panelists. So as we reflect on how far we have come with this partnership, I'd want to get your insights as opening remarks, reflecting on the 60 years of US-Kenya partnership. What does this milestone mean to you? We'll start with that. And how has this partnership evolved in the digital space? And do you have any personal experiences or reflections on the impact of this collaboration? So I'd want to start with Ambassador Bitange, if you're there with us.
I am here. I hope I can see you. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. Just ask for the audio to be increased a bit.
Okay, you let me know.
Yes, we can now hear you well.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for organizing this occasion. It is very, very critical in the sense that we evaluate where we have come from and see where we can go forward. I've been involved in the space for some time, beginning towards the end of 1980s, when we were beginning to see internet, and we used to store and forward, because then we had a monopoly, Telecom Kenya, which had not been liberalized, controlled the connectivity. Eventually, 89, I know the US had been involved from when I was not born and when I was born, but I'm beginning from where I think the actual story of collaboration in ICTs and then AI later. So 89, we liberalized Telecom Kenya. Slowly, we began to have ISPs. I had just come back from the US, where I went to school. I had a cyber cafe, and the highest speed I had at the time was 64 KB, meaning that you would try to get online and it takes you 15 minutes with a very beautiful sound coming through. Then from there on, we found a lot of Kenyans who had come back from the US get into Africa Online and support from the US, which was named like America. They are an equivalent of the same in the US. These were the ISPs that began. US was very supportive because many of those who came back came from the US and brought the ideas. But when we got very strong support, by chance I was appointed the permanent secretary. It wasn't permanent, but that was the name of it in 2005. But by then we had already had various support from the US. In 2006, I got to know a deputy ambassador in the US Embassy. We began to work very, very closely. And around that time, we had EldoHub, which was run by Eric Hashman, who is an American. We didn't have sufficient capacity to help. But quickly, when I got to know the US deputy ambassador, he organized a couple of trips to US, went to Washington and the Silicon Valley. We created a lot of friendship in both Silicon Valley and also in Washington, DC and New York for IBM. So we began to engage with IBM, began to engage with Google. Indeed, 2007, 8, Eric Schmidt, who was the head of Google at the time, asked me to introduce him to Musheru, who became our Minister for Communication, to head Google in Africa. I'm going faster because there is a lot of detail which I'm trying to write. And that began to open more engagement with the US. IBM, when I went to see IBM in New York, I didn't have much dreams, but then they were very helpful. I met the entire team, and they actually offered that they will come to Kenya, work with us, and indeed, the president of IBM came and met with our president Kibaki then, and made a lot of promises. That is how IBM came to be, and I must say we dropped the ball with IBM because they gave us a blank check how we can work with. They said we can share the patents and other things, but our legal framework does not recognize such. So the partnership was we contribute a little towards the lab, and all the innovations that came out of there we share, which was a good deal. And they offered to educate up to 6 PhDs. But when I left, we couldn't pay our part of the deal with IBM. But since then, those who follow, IBM has had several patents out of Kenya. And this is something we don't want to avoid. We want to avoid in future relationships. Then Google eventually came to Kenya. I've been working very closely with them. Then Microsoft later on came to Kenya. I would just say this without talking about the impact that they have created in Kenya. The whole idea of building a center like Silicon Valley, which was our concern, started when I was in New York. We met some consultancy companies which were supported by USAID, and they developed the blueprint, the initial one for Consa. Then I went to Silicon Valley. At the time, Facebook was a small company based in Stanford. And you can see what has happened. And with that, we concretize some sort of relationships to work with the US companies, get advice from the US government. And later on, you can see much that has happened with respect to the collaborations that we had with the US. And I had hoped we would continue because there's still, I maintained very close relations with the VCs that supported startups which were coming out of EldoHub. The legal framework did not allow us, even when we landed the cable, we wanted to give it for free to hubs. And the questions I would get is that this is a private sector, how do you provide it? I think now we are more, we have understood the disruptions of this. And in the space of AI, which I'm very deeply involved from MIT, I just finished a course there on the applications of AI and looking forward to come home to begin the implementation of AI in rural areas, especially in eliminating or achieving what the SDGs, it's possible to link it that way. We have the responsibility to lead in the sense that the networks we have created can enable us to transform our economy, but everybody must begin to understand that these collaborations sometimes require deeper understanding, and then that we also must contribute towards such development. I can actually speak deep. You did not give me how long, but I would stop here and I can add as we move forward. But simply that's how much of what has happened started from towards the end of the 80s. I know earlier we had support from the US in various areas, and we need to work much more closely as we move deeper into AI and other technologies. If you look at my report, we were silent on the regulatory aspect because we tend to look at challenges rather than opportunities. So the success in the US is because they look more towards opportunities than discovery. But we have been a little bit corrupted by the European way of putting regulation ahead of innovation. And I would beg that we begin to work much more differently as we've been working with the US. I know that is a bit controversial, but that's the only way we can move forward. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Ambassador Bitange. That was quite something. You have quite the experience in this space, and we're still looking forward to you coming and giving us the knowledge that you've acquired in AI, as you've said, in the rural areas, they need it, and that we may continue with these partnerships that we've had and maybe change the angle to focus more on innovation than putting emphasis on regulation. And now I'd want to go to Mr. Jim. Please give us your reflections on this, how we've evolved in the space, and if you have any personal or reflection of the impact of this partnership. There's a microphone just beside you. 3 minutes for this.
All right, thank you. So first, partnership in 60 years. And partnership is always built on our shared democratic values and compatible economic visions, right? All digital transformation flows from that.
Mr. Jim, sorry for interrupting. I want you to hold it close to your...
Okay.
Yes.
All right, but I think you heard the first remarks. 60, I think Kenya's past 60, right? But 1965 marks when we had our first public diplomacy programs in the tech space. There are many people here that have benefited from those programs. We were able to renew those programs at the state visit last year, expand them into a next generation. So that's the marking of 60. So this partnership, it gets called now the Silicon Savannah. It's a good marketing term. That term came along later. The partnership developed much, much earlier. But we take the term Silicon Savannah, of course, Silicon coming from, back in California and Savannah here. We take it seriously. And I came here about 2.5 years ago, about the same time that Ambassador Meg Whitman came, of course, famous tech executive. It's also the same time President Ruto came along by coincidence. And so we gave this very specific definitions, right? 4 things. You have to have the policy framework right in order to encourage innovation and encourage investment and encourage skill development. Second, you need the big companies to be here and bought in and want to be here and want to expand. Third, you need to be able to encourage investment and investment in smaller companies, investment in smaller startups, right? And fourth, you need education with anchor institutions that allow that high-tech education to take place. The interesting thing is, if you hear Ambassador Bitange's remarks, you heard all 4 of those weaved in at certain points, right? Some more than others, but they were all there. And this is really a matter of people just in companies and others just making decisions along the way that are built out of those shared values that I mentioned. Right. I mean, maybe the ambassador say, no, we had a very specific plan for this all the way. Yep. But no, I mean, you know how it goes. A university rector decides we need to make this partnership. A government official is scrambling and figures out how do we make these policy regulations work, and you get there. It's not easy. Most countries don't. Most countries, I've worked in several countries. I've never had a country that's able to put together what Kenya has put together in terms of a tech vision. Now, if you go forward to the modern day, this makes it actually easier to be much more structured than maybe it was in the old days. We can come to the government and say, as companies, as governments, as just civil society, and say, this is what we need policy-wise, or this is what we need education-wise in order to make Kenya get to the next step, in order to have, say, an Amazon Web Services Research and Development Center that employs so many people, in order to have, more companies that are in the, say, call center, BPO space, in order to have the investment in startups, which led to Kenya being the leading destination for startup capital in the continent for the last 2 years running, right? A lot of these were made because of specific choices that Kenya made. And we saw a lot of this in results in the state visit that we had last year. We saw the Microsoft project, which is more data center based, the Google undersea cable investments here. You had Apple with its Web Developer Academy, which they just graduated their first group at Strathmore a couple weeks ago. It goes on and on and on. Many companies involved in digital skilling, and I would just the underpinning again is there were specific choices that were made that came out of our bilateral conversations and our business to business conversations, and I would say that includes the fact that there's a competing event going on this morning that many of you know about, of the rollout of the AI strategy. We wish some of them were here today, but frankly, that's a extension of what we're celebrating here today, right? And we're very happy about that. And I'll leave it with that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jim. We appreciate your remarks on that. And yes, so Kenya has had great milestones. We have worked together, and looking at this partnership was formed 60 years ago. There's room for us to even create something even better going ahead, right? Amazing. I'd want to welcome now Mr. Bashir to answer the same question.
Morning. First and foremost, I would like to register apology from my PS, Engineer John Tanui, and Secretary E-Government, Mary Kerema, who would have here to represent the PS, but they are engaged elsewhere, where the ministry is launching AI strategy, the Kenya AI strategy 2025-2030, at KICC. I hope you will accept the apologies.
We accept it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
On the question on the personal reflection, mine, as Professor Bitange Ndemo said, he started from around 1980s, when I think he was conversant in the ICT sector. But for me, I think I was born around that time. So mine is a reflection of this 60 years partnership, where I think much of the time I was not there, but from around 2000, I can appreciate the partnership. And based on that, it's a great milestone which we now look into the future as a stepping stone for greater achievements. And on the digital space, what I can say, I think Professor Ndemo has already laid the foundations, where first the partnership between Kenya and US began with the telecommunications partnerships, where initially we had high cost of telephones and internet services, and extremely slow internet services. So from there, I think we were able to move to better, efficient, cost-effective internet services after the support and partnership between Kenya and US, where undersea cables were able to land in Kenya around 2009. We had CCOM, the first undersea cable landed in 2009 in Kenya, and the CCOM is largely owned by US private companies. And then there is also TEAMS, the submarine, East African submarine cable. This is largely 85% owned by Kenya and 15% owned by some private owners in US. So this, with the coming in of these cables, the internet speeds were able to improve. The cost also went down. The other thing I can say is the current one, what we are doing, the digital transformation project, where I think James has already spoken about the data centers, the green data centers. So with the current partnership with US, recently, the president was able to visit US, and Kenya signed a partnership to have these green data centers in Kenya at Olkalau. And there is also another company from Europe, United Arab Emirates, called G42, which also partnered with this, in this partnership, Kenya US partnership, to invest $1 billion for AI research, language learning, modeling, and all this.
Okay.
I've not, I think the other thing you've asked is about personal experience and impact. For me, I can say digital skilling is one personal experience I've noted. It's good. I can see the CEO, Immobilizia. Digital skilling, he's played, I think, a good role in there. This is through partnership between Ministry of ICT, KEPSA, Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Then there's also MasterCard, where we are partnering to do digital hubs across the country in all the 40, 50 wards in Kenya. And with that, we were able to have, with the partnership with eMobilis, 110 constituency innovation hubs, which we are now changing to what we call digital hubs. So by the end of the year 2027, we hope to have 1,450 digital hubs. That is first phase. And currently, by the end of this year, we might, some are different levels, we might going to have 720 digital hubs for digital skillings for our youths. Recently, you've seen there was quite outcry from our youths about employment. So this is where youths get ICT digital skills, entrepreneurship, e-marketing, and all that, and they also work online. So that is what I've realized. Then the other thing is on the Silicon Savannah at CONSA, which is an agency and Ministry of ICT. We are having smart city where even waste management is automated through AI. There's no manual collection. This is, you just dispose your waste in different cans, where maybe bottles in a different container.
Yes.
The other maybe like 3 or so. Then from there, it's automatically collected and disposed. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bashir. From what I'm getting is that we are still evolving, we're still growing every other day, and this is going to help our entrepreneurs in Kenya. The youth that are looking for jobs, the opportunities are being created. Amazing. Let me welcome Professor Irake to give us his remarks on the same.
Good morning. I can guarantee you that I will not talk up.
Sure.
I'll try and be as brief as I can. I'm very happy, Vera Obonyo, that KSG and University of Nairobi don't just share fence, we are sharing other transformations. Now, when we talk about the US-Kenya partnership, I would want to go beyond 60 years. There was a very interesting article that appeared in the Daily Nation over the weekend. And they indicated that the first Kenya to go and study in the US did that in 1909. So we have had some interaction with the US for a very long time. It was the same year that one American president came to Kenya for game hunting. Somebody going to study, another one came for game hunting. We had more collaborations during the colonial era. I don't know whether there's anybody here from Kiambu or Murang'a. Kiambu or Murang'a? Kwani mnatoka wapi? Because if you go to Kiambu or Murang'a and you ask them what they call a car, they'll tell you a car is called the Biyoki. And then when you do some research, you discover that the Biyoki is simply corruption of Buick. If you're an American, you know that car model called Buick. So during the colonial era, we used to have a lot of Buick cars, American cars, and even Ford model. That was the first technological connection in the US. We also have had some negative connections. I don't know whether any American here comes from Chicago, because we had a very famous guy called Al Capone. And my research has shown that one of Al Capone's bodyguard used to live in Kenya. We can talk about that later. You all remember about the airlift of 1959, when a lot of Kenyan scholars went to study in America, and they came and made a difference to this country. But my closest connection to America was actually 1980s, when I met some American Peace Corps in my village. They came as teachers. And I can assure you that I'm not going to disclose the name of my village for security reasons, but that was a very close encounter. I remember her name was Janet. I don't know where she came from. I just saw her in my neighboring secondary school. We can also add the President Obama, and closer home, President Uhuru Kenyatta. He was one of Kenya's first US educated president. And if you listen to his speeches, not only did he have the American accent, but he used some American economic transformation models. He was the first to start talking about economic stimulus package and so on. And then my personal connection, I lived there for about 6 years. I was in Mississippi. So some of you could be getting my southern drawl. And I was able to realize that, and that transformed me, because I realized Americans don't think the same as Britons. Although they want to go to the moon and beyond and Mars, Americans like making things very simple. And if you don't believe me, just go to the website of the US Supreme Court. You don't need a lawyer to interpret for you. They don't use wherefores and therefores. They use plain English. That transformed me a bit. Let's now get home about the digital transformation, because it had precursors. We are talking about digital transformation today, but it had precursors. For example, Americans were the first to mass produce cars, and car ownership changed the way we live, the same way internet has changed the way we live. And remember, internet had some American connection. Americans gave us the social media. You know what you do with your phones. You know what you do with your WhatsApp, and so on. Now we are talking about artificial intelligence, again originating from America and transforming us. So whether you look at it from the historical point of view or the current point of view, we are seeing some American technological transformation. Whether it is internet, whether it is the cars, whether it is artificial intelligence, they are there. And I wanted to contradict this American connection with the Chinese connection. Chinese seems to be transforming us physically with highways and roads and so on, but America is digital and mental. I must say that I'm very happy with this discussion, because this is my home. Before I became an economist, my area was physics and technology. So you are bringing me back home. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Professor Irake, and for taking us through that journey. And we're glad that you're here in this panel. To you, Ms. Magdaline, please share with us your remarks. There you go.
So for me, I might not be able to share a lot of experience 60 years ago, but I want to focus on the last 10 years.
Use mine, I think yours has a problem.
Thank you. So I was saying I might not be able to share the 60 years ago, but I will share 10 years ago, which is also part of the 60 years. I think we've had a very good collaboration and very good working relationship with the US, of course, US and Kenya, and some of the programs that the US government has come up with is capacity building and supporting the young people, of course, in Africa, and which Kenya is included. And one of them being the Mandela Washington Fellowship programs, the yearly Young African Leaders initiatives, which was started some times back, and mainly was to create that relationship between the US and the Kenya. Also for us to really understand each other of, what are some of the things that the synergies that we could work together. And you all know that Kenya and Africa, we have a huge number of young people. And I think this is a very good opportunity to leverage on that very huge young people who are tech savvy, they are very smart. You also the Gen Zs and all the, the hype and the conversation that has been happening in Kenya. And I think those are some of the ways in which maybe we could leverage on in terms of the US-Kenya partnership. And we've seen this through the different programs. Personally, I've participated in the Mandela Washington Fellowship, which I was selected and went to the Chicago, that's Northwestern University. And that was the first time that I got to really understand the world of entrepreneurship and what are all these things that are needed. And my colleague said that, Americans make things simple. And I think that's also contributed to why also I started the organization that I'm currently running, EldoHub. It's because of the simplicity. You start by looking at the challenges, understanding all the opportunities within the local context. And I know sometimes we talk about Silicon Valley and, as much as we want to borrow the different models, but at the end of the day, we also have to look at the local context. And it's something that I learned from participating in the Mandela Fellowship and going through a 6-week intense program where I got to understand about venture capitalists, angel investors, and interacted with them, financials and how to build structures, how to negotiation, and different digital technologies that we could actually incorporate to, of course, sort out some of the challenges that we have. And when we were selected during the orientation, I want to differ with my colleague here that we were told that the first alumni who was the first, let me call 001 alumni for the US program, US Department of State programs in Kenya was the former president, that's Daniel Moi. He was also part of the alumni network. So I think since probably also our foundation has been built through those relationships that we've had as Kenya. So in terms of digital technologies, I think also one of the other things that I participated in is the Tech Women program. Tech Women program takes 108 women across Africa, Middle East, and the other countries that we call the Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan countries. And I was also part of them. And we were taken to Silicon Valley again on an exchange program just to understand the digital landscape. And I remember I was attached to the University of California, and there we were developing digital solution. And one of the solutions that I developed, working with my partners, working with my professional mentors, which was assigned through the program. And we developed a digital platform called Sasakazi, of course, leveraging on the youth that I've talked about to connect them to digital opportunities. And one of the key things that we focused on is, locally. We know that if we don't support businesses to digitize their processes, we might not, they can, they will be disrupted, and we might not be ahead of things in terms of technology. And sometimes we get disrupted. So I think it was very important for businesses to digitize their processes. And we wanted to leverage on a model where it is the young people who are tech savvy who are actually developing those digital solutions. And it's a very good model that has worked. And also we realized that young people are not, as much as we focus so much on experience, 10 years of experience, the model that we've used, even it's digital technologies is about expertise, what you can deliver. And these young people are very smart and they can deliver, and we've seen that. And also on the government side, I think the digital, digitizing also the government services is also one of the key things that also these young people. That's why I also wanted to speak on focusing on the young people to support digital transformation and of course supporting digital skilling. On my personal experience, I think I've talked about the Tech Women program, going to Silicon Valley, being taken through Google and different tech companies, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and interacting fast and also being mentored by employees from those organizations. It really changed my mindset, and also start thinking about, the opportunities that we have in Africa and also in Kenya, and also think about growth and scalability, because sometimes we also confuse startup and small businesses. I think I started understanding how the startup also world works in terms of innovation, collaboration, and focusing on growth and scalability. So that's my personal experience, and I'll stop at that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Magdaline. That is very profound. You are the face of the, how would I put it, beneficiary of this partnership. She has really benefited from it, and we are seeing how she has impacted the community from that. So that's how we continue to grow, by taking back whatever we have to empower our communities. And now I'd want to go back to Mr. James and Mr. Bashir. As we know of the emerging technologies, talk of AI, IoT, cloud computing, looking at this, what are the most promising emerging technologies that have the potential to drive socio-economic development in Kenya? And how can the US-Kenya collaboration accelerate the adoption and impact of these technologies? Let me start with you, Mr. James.
Sure. I'll leave discussion of IoT to smarter people, but AI, cloud computing, I should address. I mean, AI first, it's a huge Pandora's box in so many ways, and it can seem overwhelming. But when we look,
your mic, sorry again.
Yeah. So when we try to drill down on AI and figure out what are the actual impacts here, they tend to be very, very close to the ground in ways that are actually very, very beneficial in meeting, specific social needs. For example, you have big companies like Microsoft and Google involved in this space, but if I'm looking at how, say, Microsoft's AI for Good Lab connects, it's developing, say, a spatial temporal machine learning model to detect malnutrition. That's a fancy way of saying a complex heat map. Right. So addressing food security needs. Another project from the same lab was helping with search and rescue efforts following the floods last year. Right. There are a lot of small startup companies that are using AI in education, entertainment, or edutainment. Sometimes it gets blurred a little bit. But again, it's very specific needs. AI, Google's AI-powered Jacaranda Health, for example, is a company that's been using Google AI's handheld ultrasound technologies in clinics. There are other examples of this in the health space. If you talk to companies that are in, or investors that are, say, in the VC space looking for smaller companies to invest in, that benefit that I mentioned of Kenya being the leading destination, a lot of them are looking at how companies utilize AI effectively in their business model to meet smaller needs, but really important social needs of this magnitude, right? If we look at cloud computing, I mean, it's a little bit obvious. I mean, you have the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazon Web Services out there. They're making an impact. They're working increasingly with the government and the private sector to make sure these products are integral to government services, integral to services that extend all the way out, that make everything quicker, faster, and more accessible. There's an underrated element, though, I would say, in the cybersecurity element of all this with cloud computing. I mean, you've probably remember a lot of the CloudStrike and other attacks that happened just a couple of years ago that were happening on a monthly basis. We haven't seen so many of those recently, right? And I think a lot of the role of these companies in cloud computing, working with the government and cybersecurity has been really helpful. Overall, it's no coincidence that the government is rolling out its national cloud policy and its AI strategy within a couple months of each other at the beginning of this year. And I think that'll be very helpful in help, because there's still some things to figure out in terms of, cross-border data privacy, how payments are made within the EAC. We still some challenges, but I think those are the areas where I see most opportunity. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And let me just before I go to Mr. Bashir, how can we accelerate the adoption of the impact of these technologies through this partnership?
So I think the last part was my answer to the question, in that once we have the policies in place, it'll be much easier for companies to come and understand like how cross-border data flows, how capital will flow across EAC companies, and it'll just make it easier. But the other part is just skilling. It's you don't think of Apple as part of AI, but one of the interesting things that we learned in the visit that has been mentioned to San Francisco is that the number of Kenyans that are involved in web development, so how many do you think it is? I don't know, like dozens? No. Hundreds? No. Thousands. Several thousands, right? And they're not employees of Apple, but there are a lot of people that are just smart and learning and able to pick up very complex technologies and put them into practice. But with AI, we still have a long ways to go in being able to make that work. A lot of those really clever, interesting apps, there are people who can do them, but we're far from reaching Kenya's true talent base in that regard. And that's the next step, I think, also. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let's appreciate him for that. So it's the policy that we need to develop so that we have the right guidance on this. Mr. Bashir.
Thank you. I think these three emerging technologies are going to shape the landscape of digital transformation in Kenya. I think Mr. James has spoken much about the AI, which is transforming all sectors within Kenya, the education, health, agriculture, and all. So maybe I can delve on the Internet of Things, where we currently exploring and using this emerging technology in our Konza Technopolis for development of land infrastructure, where I think I have spoke about the issue of e-waste management. This is where such technology is applied. And there is great opportunities in this because this being the first one, probably in Africa, we might need maybe to move the same to other cities, even Nairobi and maybe cities in Africa. Kenya is fast, and Kenya is a digital hub, I think, in East Africa and maybe in Africa very soon. And the other one is the AI. I think maybe James has already spoken about the policy. Recently, last year, December, we launched AI policy. Sorry, a cloud policy, and today we are launching the AI strategy. And we need to, I think, also work on the opportunities and challenges with the AI. Quite a number of times we just look about the opportunities and we forget about the challenges, like the ethical use of AI. I think the lecturers and the students know that. Right now, if you want to do assignment or research, yes, I think within a second you will have your whole assignment or even research. But now, how is that going, being ethical use of AI? That also need to be relooked into. On the cloud computing, right now, we already have a policy as a ministry we launched last year, and we are looking at the cloud computing as fast, where all the infrastructure, especially for government, are prioritized to be on cloud computing. We call it infrastructure as a service. Then we also have applications. All applications, especially government applications, are recommended to be on this cloud computing. We have now 3 data centers in Kenya, one in Konza, another one in Kiambuia, and another one being with a partnership with the US at Olkalau. So the government recommends the infrastructure as a service, application as a service, and also service as a service to be on this cloud computing. On how the US-Kenya partnership can accelerate the collaboration. On this one, I think one most important thing is just bilateral agreements and maybe frameworks of operation, like what we had during President William Ruto's visit to US, where we had joint statements issued by the then President Biden on collaboration in ICT. And maybe the other one is upscaling, where we need to maybe do evaluations of the partnerships and do maybe learning from the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bashir. I just have one more question for you, a follow-up question in regards to us using this technology, this emerging technology. How far has the government gone in ensuring that the rural areas are also have the skills and are up to par with the others in the cities?
Thank you. For the rural areas, the government is looking at having all these far-flung areas connected to the internet through the last mile county connectivity project. This is done in phases. The first one now being 2023, 2027, we are going to connect the wards, the 1450 wards. That is the first phase. We're going to have this connectivity in all the wards. Later on, we're going to move, maybe we're going to double the second phase, maybe the next 2027, 2032, will double. From there, the government is intending to have at least 3 in every ward. By doing so, we're going to, this thing is this internet connectivity is provided for free. And these digital hubs, youths, the public, everyone else can access the internet free, can access the devices there free. They can also access training opportunities, online jobs for free. That is the direction the government is taking. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that. And so let me move on to the other question. And this is going to Ambassador Bitange. How can the US and Kenya deepen their digital cooperation to address key challenges such as cybersecurity, digital inclusion, and technological scalability?
Thank you. and I am happy that we are addressing this. I think we need to move to the next level with respect to developing centers of excellency so that we build capacity enough to ask the right questions and collaborate with universities in the US. That's what we were beginning to do. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, collaboration. I think I like the questions you are asking, but for this new area, especially data, AI requires data in order to build models. And we need to go back. I think there's something we had started, Kenya Open Data Initiatives, that data should be clean so that it's used to help, especially rural areas. The questions that the citizens must begin to ask is, how can I improve productivity in this space? Then we can pick which technology we want. Do we need AI? Do we need data to develop predictive models? Do we need blockchain? Because blockchain is growing big, especially in border areas. Ethiopia doesn't have Forex, but they trade with Kenya very efficiently because of blockchain itself. These are things we must bring forward to policymakers to see how we can be able to make them properly leveraged. And also, it's good for the citizens to begin to know. For example, for many years, nobody in Kenya could access credit through the banks. But because of AI, you can't see it, but they are able to do credit scoring and giving loans. That's how you get loans from major platforms in the country. So AI is already playing a very big role. We need to enable deeper use of AI. Then, as I said, we look at regulations after we have come up with the innovations. I say this because of the experience we went through with M-Pesa, where most people were demanding for regulation even before the product came out. And it has gone to the level that we are using it. We need basic understanding of all technologies. And we need to train everybody in the university, whether they are doing history or whatever, they must have knowledge of AI or all emerging technologies. There is a tendency of thinking that because it's a scientific process, that those in arts cannot understand it. That is wrong. Anybody, including a farmer in the rural area, can ask, how can I improve my productivity? Or can I be able to harvest enough food from the acreage I have? Those are things can be done now. It is no magic. That's how the application begins, and the people begin to ask deeper questions that solve their problems. That's how we can be able to make this understood by the people. It is not going to be that those who come up with the new applications are the ones to explain it, but we need also people to say, usually when I grow maize here, it's not enough for my family. Then we are able to prescribe another crop which can give them enough resources for consumption. Then some of us now can build the value chains to create jobs for those who are not innovating and be able to utilize all the resources within the country. And then US can see the value and begin to develop deeper partnerships in that space. We can't sit and ask US, give us what to do. It is us to ask that we have maxed this up. Now we need a number of PhDs in this space. Can we collaborate? And actually, you don't need even to ask the government of US. The universities want to collaborate. The reason why we went to Stanford was to avoid the bureaucracies of collaborations. So there is a lot that needs to be done from the universities. Universities must understand that we are in a different space and to begin this kind of collaboration. We must build our languages, the language models of every ethnic group, because those who are doing this in education know that there is higher cognition when you are taught in your own language. This is what we need to do. There is a lot to be done. There is a lot of space for creating employment, but we are waiting to be told how to be done. So this is what we need to do to create employment and reduce the number of young Africans dying across the Mediterranean. There is a lot of jobs in these emerging technologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Bitange. That is very profound. So we need to look into having value. We have value, and then the US can collaborate with us, and also changing perceptions that it shouldn't be hard. It's not for the techies, it's for everyone.
You remember someone who wanted to go to heaven, and when they met Jesus, they said, "How can I see the kingdom of heaven?" That is the question we need from everybody in the rural areas. How can I avoid hunger by using those technologies? Then now, Professor Irake can say, we can build a model which would help them. You don't need to use the word model. Here is the solution that we want you to try. You don't grow the maize. You would rather be doing poultry from 1/4 acre, or you would rather grow mushrooms, and they should not get problems in selling those mushrooms because another one will develop the value chain, link it to the market. Now, we don't have some of these things. We keep importing meat from Japan when we can teach our Maasai, our other pastoralists to grow the cows, the ones who like Wagyu. We can actually grow it in Kenya, and they get the resource, the money.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ambassador Bitange, once again. So we just need to empower our own and have them see the solutions that come with this technology, and that way we have digital inclusion. To Professor Irake and Ms. Magdaline, I want you to answer to what roles should the government, private sector, and academia play in ensuring an inclusive and resilient digital transformation? Having that you're in academia, Professor Irake, please help us with this question.
I thought in the Kenyan criteria, ladies come first, but I'll take it up. I think I want to say one or two things from what Professor Ndemo and my other colleagues mentioned, because AI is being mentioned everywhere. There are two things we must overcome if we want AI to be successful. One of them is fear. When I was a small boy in primary school, my brother came from Nairobi, and he talked about how computers are being introduced in offices and how many people are going to lose jobs and how people are very scared. Today, we have more jobs created by computers than destroyed. We must see AI as an opportunity. And number two, if we want people to use AI more, we must show the application and the use. We don't even need to force them to use it. One of the things that fascinates me when I go to the countryside, in the countryside, is that you find people who have never been to school, they cannot read and write, but give them any money, they will count. Any money. So once people see the application of something, they make use of it. So you asked me the role of the government in all this collaboration and the role of the private sector and academia. I'll be very brief. I think the biggest role of the government is to regulate. And Professor Ndemo talked about it, that one of the reasons why M-Pesa was so successful is because the government came up with the right regulation. The government could have said, this is for the banks. We are not going to let you use M-Pesa. But the regulation was very lax. The regulation was very good, was very effective. So the government does the regulation, but also provide the necessary infrastructure. Because if we are going to use AI, if we are going to have digital transformation, we must have power like this in the house. or in our house and offices. We must have roads. We must have other infrastructure. So we must get infrastructure because there are some things you cannot provide as an individual, the public goods, and the government should do that. But I like the idea of government giving us optimal regulation. In 1996, I went to the central bank and I was doing some study on derivatives, those who are in finance. And I asked the central bank, who regulates the derivatives? And I was told, when they get to the market, we shall regulate them. So the private sector is usually ahead of the government. That's why its major work is to innovate and come up with new ideas, because they can take the risk. They are not as conservative as the government. And very important, they must keep on improving the existing products and processes. And I believe that one other thing the private sector must do in this digital transformation, making sure these things work, is to lobby the government. The government is always not as fast as the private sector. So sometimes you have to lobby it to make certain policy changes, certain legal changes. What about academia, where I belong? I think we must continue doing research and coming up with new ideas. That's our work. That's why taxpayers pay us. That's why taxpayers fund us. But very important, we must be the thought leaders. We must be the people leading transformation. And what is most important in the academia is we must always inspire the next generation, because we deal with the young people. It is not surprising that Bill Gates, an American, was 19 years when he started Microsoft. It is not surprising that Zuckerberg was 23 years old when he started Facebook. So if you have a son or a daughter who is 19 years or 23, what is he doing? So one of the things we must do in academia is definitely inspire the next generation. I wish I could get Generation Z and tell them that beyond going to demonstrate on the streets of Nairobi, can we get all this energy, just 10% of it, and put it into innovation and national transformation? And finally, all the three partners must work together. You cannot work alone. You cannot succeed alone. Finally, I'm concerned by the way most of you are seated. You are seated folding your arms. So I wonder how you sit when you go to the church on Sundays.
Thank you very much, Professor Irake. And I hope that you are listening in so that you're able to engage later on. Professor Irake is concerned. I want to give it to Miss Magdaline to give us a view.
Yeah, so for me, first of all, before I answer the question, I think also we need to kind of change our mindset. When we talk about digital transformation, AI, are we ready for all these things? And are we ready in terms of the mindset? Because I'll give an example, which also I've talked to some few schools, especially high schools, and every time when I have, I ask one of them, who was a head teacher, what is, we were having a discussion and they told me that, their most important thing is to make sure that most of their students go to national schools. In fact, they say it said their main objective was to take the children to national schools. Yeah, so which I felt like, it is changing. We need to understand that the world is also changing. Technology is kind of disrupting education and how we train. The jobs which are also being disrupted, of course, so many other jobs are going to be created. But if we don't change our mindset in terms of how we educate our children, then we might be far from achieving some of this digital transformation. So I think the academia, as well as also the government, needs to really work very hard to ensure that, we have hands-on kind of training. When Ambassador Bitange and Ndemo talked about hands-on, Maasai, and when Prof also here talked about when you go to the village and you see how innovative these village people, sorry for saying that, but they are very innovative. The things that they are doing, maybe what they just need is an holding, supporting them to commercialize and take some of this innovation to even scale. We've seen some of our products, someone else come from another place and come and innovate and makes a kill out of our innovation, which we've known all our lives. So I think for me, we need to really change our mindset, both from the youth, even the government, the academia, the way we train and the way we educate, so that we are able to adopt these new technologies, AI, and also leverage on data, and also think about research and also how we are going to commercialize. That said, of course, I'm not going to share so much about what my colleague has talked about, but I think for digital transformation to succeed, we definitely need collaboration for both from the government side, the private sector, as well as also the academia. And all this needs to work together so that also the academia are in sync, even in terms of education, in terms of this digital skilling, are in sync also with what the private sector needs. And also the government can come up with the different regulations that enables these digital innovations also to thrive. And also maybe we are going also, one day we are going to have our own unicorn in Kenya, and something that we could scale. And sometimes we also have to think about the African market and all that. So I will answer this question in terms of e-commerce and how I know that the Kenyan ecosystem has been evolving throughout time. So when you talk about e-commerce, there are three aspects of e-commerce. One of them is information flow. That means you have to connect the buyer and the seller. Then they need a website. They need a place where they get this information, and all this is designed by maybe the people that are being trained by the academia and these are the young people who are tech savvy, who are able to build all that. And when we come to the second phase is the payment. Once you connect with the buyer and the seller, you have to pay, right? Yeah. So this is where also the private sector comes in terms of innovation, the fintech, and ensuring that this in like M-Pesa, we have M-Pesa, right? We have M-Pesa, and that's why also in Kenya, e-commerce and these digital technologies are thriving because we have a way of means of payment. And then the last one is the logistics. You have to take your product to the customers, right? And different innovation like drones, AI, also other innovations are needed in terms of achieving these logistical issues. And it is something that in Kenya, we've not gotten it right. We've not gotten it right. And I think that's why there are so many challenges there and there. And I think government needs to come in terms of bringing in regulation, cybersecurity, data protection, which enables trust. Because we need, with all this innovation and digital technologies that we need to adopt, we need trust and we need cybersecurity, as my panel of my fellow panelists have already shared. So all this, it's kind of an ecosystem where everyone has a role in terms of adopting. I was just giving that as an example in terms of adopting the different digital technologies, whether it's artificial intelligence, data, and all these technologies. We need all of us to be there. We need the government in terms of regulation. We need them to enact data protection and cybersecurity. I think this has been done. We have a data protection Act, Data Protection Act, which I think we've made progress there, and that is needed to build trust. If you look at the example that I give, e-commerce, it's based on trust, right? And that is very important for that. And also develop policies that support digital literacy, as well as also skills development, which has been talked about, and promote competition and innovation. And I think also the government needs to digitize they are digitizing their government services. And like I said before, we need to really involve the young people. And I'll give an example of how we did with the platform that we created, the Sasa Kazi. In 2020, during the COVID period, we have a training center and our young people could no longer come to our training center. Same also for the businesses, everyone had closed. So we went to the businesses and asked them, what are some of the technologies maybe and projects that you want to build that the young people can help you to develop. So we ended up getting 40 projects from the private sector, from the businesses, and these are small businesses. And then we talked to the young people, and we had a vetting process where you don't have to be a university graduate. You just need to show that you can deliver on the assignment that we were going to give you. So we selected 40 young people, and they were able to support the businesses. The projects that they were coming up with, the e-commerce, chatbots. Some of them were building. Integrating M-Pesa API to the different platforms. And by the end of the program, which we did as a pilot during COVID, 36 of them got employed, and the businesses are the ones, the local businesses are the ones who employ them. And that's where businesses also realize that, innovation and digital transformation is something that they can no longer wish away, they have to be, and that's everyone started realizing, technology is now part of us, and it's something that could grow. And also, I think the government also are digitizing their government services, and we need to leverage on these young people. And these young people are being developed by the academia. Thank you.
Can I add
Thank you.
something?
Yes, you can add.
Yes, you've asked a very good question. And sometimes we have a tendency arrogating ourselves duties. You ask the questions about university, and because my colleague professor is there, universities in Africa are completely delinked from development. In other parts of the world, they are part and parcel of development, because if you look at Stanford and Silicon Valley, they are intertwined, and all other universities around the space. When we came up with CONSA, no one university came up. In fact, we got a Korean institution to come there, and our local university did not see their role in it. I think we need to ask every university, what has been your contribution towards employment creation, or in terms of the contribution of the university towards GDP? Because the research we are doing, we are supposed it's supposed to lead to something that is productive. And that's where everything goes wrong. These technologies would enable us to create greater productivity and be part and parcel of development of the country. But if we continue to see ourselves as disparate to existing systems of economic development, then we fail. And that is where I think we need to focus going forward.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Bitange. So Kenyan universities, as you say, are delinked from development, and we need to take a look at that and find solutions. And she has put it very well, that innovation and digital transformation go hand in hand. So we need to push for that as well. And finally, to our last question before we engage the audience, I want to ask both Mr. James and Mr. Bashir, how can both countries align their policies and strategies to maximize the benefits of digital transformation for their citizens? Actually, this should be the second last question. I have another question for Mr. Bitange, but let me go to you, Mr. Jim.
Thank you. So I guess two parts of that, policies and strategies. I've talked about policies some already. I think the key in aligning policies is finding policies that help create quality jobs in Kenya in the tech space. And I think there are two levels of that, right? If we go backward a couple of years of some of what we've worked with in the Kenyan government, we talk about, say, taking out ownership requirements for companies in the tech space. That leads to an Amazon Web Service coming in, creating a research and development center that keeps employing more people. That's an obvious example of really good jobs. But I would also argue that working together to harmonize our policies in areas like, say, exported service taxes which we worked with the government also, was extremely effective in making sure that business process outsourcing, call centers, other companies came in here. And if you're in a different station in life, those are also really, really good jobs if properly regulated, right? And so looking forward, trying to find more of that and making sure that those policy points where we come together create jobs, or else we're just asking for tax breaks, and other people are going to be asked to pay taxes to make up the difference, right?
Yeah.
So if we're looking at what we've been doing more recently, we talked a lot about cloud policy, AI policy. That's going to keep going. That's going to be a global debate for a long time. There are going to be positions on AI in particular where some of the regulations that are being proposed are simply going to block a lot of the development that's going to be helpful for the Kenya. And so we need to be aligned on that. Looking forward on policy, what would create jobs? We haven't really talked about high-end tech manufacturing and what would be needed to bring it to Kenya. One of the things that we highlighted during the state visit was the beginning of a semiconductor, production, mostly in the area. That could be expanded greatly. There are other types of tech production that are not quite so high tech, like Raspberry Pi, phone refurbishment. These are the sort of things that could create quality jobs, and trying to get the policy regulations right to enable that, to create high tech manufacturing could get Kenya to a certain critical mass that would be more attractive to major companies to do more and more. Right now, Kenya is below that critical mass, clearly. So doing that is part of a strategy. The other thing I would say on strategy, I mean, if you're looking at those 4 Silicon Savannah pillars, which one is weakest? I would argue education. And it's similar to what Dr. Bitange was saying. We just don't have the level. It can be highly bureaucratic making these connections. But semiconductors, you see Penn State is there. If you go and see any really major tech connection, there's a U.S. university connection, but it could be much better. It could be much stronger. And trying to think strategically about how to, maybe we won't have the Silicon Valley Stanfords, in Nairobi, but you can have schools that are very close and with much better connections with U.S. universities. And that's where we should, be focusing on partnering going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. James. And I'll take it to you, Mr. Bashir, to answer the same question.
Thank you, Stephanie. On how can both countries contribute to align their policies and strategies? One I would say is both countries need to harmonize policy development such that we don't have maybe some gaps like what we have currently with our Data Protection Act 2019, where we are so much focusing on data sovereignty, where data are supposed to be hosted within Kenya. And remember, we have US giant companies like Microsoft, Google, IBM, Intel. All these companies have set up offices in Kenya, but at the same time, these are international companies. But now how, for example, Azuri is doing cloud services. So, and this means maybe Kenya's data might be hosted outside the country against our Data Protection Act 2019. So this is where we need to harmonize our policies so that we don't have to maybe fight over there. The other one is tax regimes. Mr. James has spoken about that one, where he has also mentioned about semiconductor industry in Kenya. During the state visit of the president in US, Kenya was able to benefit from a grant of $1.3 million to do a feasibility study on semiconductor industries in Kenya around the human capital we have, around the raw materials for the manufacture of the same, the markets, the geopolitics around this semiconductor industry. And this one, feasibility study was granted to conducted by Semiconductor Technologies Limited, which has set up its fabrication in Chepkemoi University. For this reason, I think the issues to do with tax regime is very important, where, for example, we might require to import some chips from maybe US, and we've seen with the new US administration, they've been changing a lot of tax regimes. With Canada, I've seen many other countries, they are doing those tax regimes. So likewise, we might also, Kenya, we might also need to reconsider the same, and this might bring some fighting between the two nations. And then there is the last one is clear demarcations of what roles we're going to do as Kenya, because, like, for example, if I can give an example of this semiconductor industry, there's a bit of research, what most likely is done in US. There's a bit of assembly, what is done in Asian countries. Fabrications, what we've now gone for the case of Semiconductor Technologies Kenya, the manufacturing and all this. So it's good we have a clear demarcations of what roles maybe as a Kenya we need to play in this maybe collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bashir. From what I've gotten from both of you is that we need to harmonize our policies and look into the opportunities provided even in the semiconductor industry in Kenya. Thank you for that.
Can I contribute to that a little bit?
Yes, you can contribute, and then I'll ask you the final question.
Yes, I think we shouldn't be worrying that the geopolitics are changing. US can make a deal, and I think we need to announce our Kwale is full of rare earths, which we can leverage to begin to process locally, working with the US, create jobs. And with that, we begin now slowly to move into semiconductor stuff. Number two is we don't wait until US companies ask what they want. We have huge deposits of green energy, especially geothermal, which I think is up to 10 I don't know, megawatts or gigawatts or something. We need to offer, say, one of the bigger US companies a facility in Naivasha and say, we will drill the holes. We want you to use this energy because the future is going to be energy, energy, energy. We have green energy, a lot of it. We can offer to drill on condition that they put their data centers here. That's how we begin to develop. You can't ask a country like US that we harmonize policy. We need to give them a deal to push them into our part of the world. From then, we can now begin to build our capacities. And that is what I would say. I think we need a strategy of dealing with the US that gives us, we should not be concluding that because of the changing geopolitics, we could end up in the same space. But if we make a very good deal, we would be in it.
Thank you very much, Professor Bitange. So we need to have a strategy on how to deal with the US in order to align our policies. That is profound. Now, you have been part of the task force that developed the country's roadmap for emerging technology. And now with that, I want to ask what key steps should be included in the US-Kenya digital cooperation roadmap to ensure continuous knowledge exchange and the implementation of best practices?
We need, we keep on saying we have young, talented kids. We need AI to spread across all departments within the institutions of higher learning, support them to develop global standard capabilities. That's all. Then you would find that they are the ones being going either to work outside or companies moving to Kenya to set up Microsoft did not just set up in Kenya because it was Kenya, but because there was young people to provide the services. So for us, we need to spend more on higher education and develop centers of excellence, especially in AI, with collaborations with several other universities, so that you are at the global level and understood that you are producing graduates at the global level, and the rest would work by itself.
Thank you very much for that. That should be it. And now it is time for our audience to be part of the conversation. What do you have to ask? I'm seeing a hand over there. Many hands for this matter. So I will take the first 3 questions and then we'll continue as we go. So I saw a hand right at the back in blue, yes. And then the gentleman there and the lady right here at the front. Yeah, the first 3 questions.
All protocols observed. Digital and AI experts, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ambassador Esther Waringa, the President of Public Service Governance. It's a great honor to be invited to this very strategic engagement. And we want to hail the United States of America for a very strategic partnership with the Republic of Kenya on matters digital transformation. Allow me to make a very strategic submission that all of us must be tasked to undertake, even the government of the US and the government of Kenya going forward. Currently, we have the IBC commissioners who are undergoing interviews towards establishment of the next Independent Electoral Commission of Kenya. The big question is, how can we as AI and digital transformation experts be able to inculcate a culture of innovative technology to avoid what Kenya has gone through many, many years of electoral processes? We hail the United States because they finished their elections today. The next moment, everybody is on their television, peacefully ongoing with their work and waiting for electoral results. While in the Republic of Kenya, immediately we are done, or maybe 3/4 to the voting process, you find the country highly tensed. We are not able to move forward. Jobs are suspended. The country becomes so tensed and pissed off. So in this regard, as digital transformers, my big question is, one of the progressive benefits of digital transformation and AI is digital assistance on systems. How can we be able to deploy a very progressive digital transformation on our electoral processes? And because now we have been challenged by the ambassador, Bitange Ndemo, to bring the universities on board, and even the US. In the US, you talk of digital transformation, universities are there. Our Kenyan universities, it's time to sit down, even as we interview our IBC commissioners. Please, universities, come on board and tell us, how can we be able to have elections 2027 seamless because of the power of digital transformation? I must say that finally, we spend a lot of money in elections, even in voter registrations. Where is the power of AI and digital transformation in this? How can we then wholesomely be able to reduce on human error? Because one of the benefits of AI and digital transformation is reducing human error. How we for the longest time, including my dear sister, 2007, 2008, you know why we fought and we went to International Criminal Court? Because of human error, as it was said. How do we reduce on human error as one of our progressive benefits of the AI? So together we can, let's think about it. Let's have it rolling on our media stations on how digital transformation can change the electoral commission. I mean the electoral processes in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Even as we go on, I really want, because we want to take in as many questions as we can, so be very straight to the point, very concise. And you can also say if you want a specific person to answer to your question. So let me take that question and then I'll come right here.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Brian Deboy, and I am currently a university student at University of Nairobi. And when I have heard what our leaders have said here, how do we transform this economy through the use of AI? For example, when I'm in school, I usually use ChatGPT to ask it, how can we solve problems like productivity in the agricultural sector? When I do check it, I see that we only need tractors to improve productivity of food produce in our
Agricultural sector.
in our agricultural sector. So how are we bringing this issue into reality? Are we just being, are we just staying with information in our mindset, or are we bringing this thing to reality?
Okay.
Secondly, we have a change in technology in the health sector. We have things like health robots, and I have actually interacted with them because currently I do partner with Chinese agencies, and they have all these kind of things. Are we trying to invest in these resources to bring development in Kenya? Because this is one of the challenges we are facing right now. Yeah, and that's all I can say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. The last question for this round, and then we'll come back.
Yes, thank you all panelists for a very excellent session. My name is Dr. Almas from the University of Nairobi and from the Department of Computing and Informatics. I'm representing the chair. And my question is maybe to Jim. It's on the AI. Given the increasing energy consumption of AI technologies and potential environmental impacts, what strategies do you believe? Because right now we're talking about AI, but we're not looking at the environmental impacts that the future environmental impacts. Just like though we had all these species and all that, we don't know where to get rid of them. Things like that. That's one question to you. The other was maybe to, what did you say his name was?
Bashir.
Mr. Bashir, yeah. You're talking about you're coming up with a policy in place to protect our data. But what are we dealing with? Let's say companies have come to set up here, they're collecting data. Maybe we're not really scrutinizing these companies because our people are looking for employment, our youth. But what happens is pay is not commensurate to what they really should be getting. Then the data that they may be collecting is harmful to them in terms of mental issues. There's an issue. There's a recently where some people went on to saying that the things they had to watch, the data they were collecting, they'll not be well for life because of what the data they had to see on over time.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was more to the individual. How are we going to protect them? Then is it Magdaline? You talked about women in tech. Which was this organization that sponsored you? The women here, I would like to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much,
And
Dr.
a
Almas.
quick thing. I wanted to say from the University of Nairobi, we are coming up with our Masters AI in September. We are rolling that out. We're also doing an executive AI program, so we are not being left behind. And we also do literacy for everybody else as well in the university.
Amazing. And even those that are online, we can engage you. So you can put your questions in the chat and then we will read them out. I'd like to start with Professor Bitange on the first question. So what was asked by the ambassador is, how can we basically inculcate AI in our electoral processes or make it more efficient in terms of getting the results as it is done in the US?
Thank you. And I think Ambassador knows I'm a civil servant, but I will try as much as I can to respond to the question. Yes, AI can play a very key role in the sense that if we embrace facial recognition, it means that every voter would be a legitimate voter. The rest from there, and again, if it can be such that this is my radical way of thinking, that you use your facial recognition to vote from wherever you are, because the centralization is what causes problems. And if we use blockchain such that anybody who votes, it goes to multiple locations, that if you delete one location doesn't mean you have deleted, meaning everybody would have access to see how the votes are coming in. I think that's a more radical way of doing it, but that is the best way of doing it. And the second question, the gentleman should not ask how, he should be asking, what is it that I can do? Then we provide prescriptions, because when we ask how it's done, it's like somebody somewhere will do it. But when you ask, how do I do this to improve my own productivity, it means it's going to be put into practice. I'm going to ask for permission to leave in another 5 minutes because we have another function. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Bitange. And I think you have also just answered to a question that I've seen online on someone asking how we can use AI to increase productivity in the agricultural sector, something that also Brian had asked. I will go to the next question because the ambassador has already answered to two. So going to you, Mr. Jim, on what Dr. Almas had asked.
Thank you. So, I mean, if I understand the question correctly, it's about the impact of AI in environment you mentioned, but also I just think just its immense power generation needs that are associated with AI. I mean, I think just in terms of environment per se, I don't know that the impact is that great. And when you see the data centers that have been proliferating through the United States, there are noise concerns, but they're not air pollution concerns, right? They're not other environmental damage concerns within the US with the creation of data centers. But there's a big question of what happens if you don't have enough power to generate this large expansion of data centers. And you know, the professor was mentioning earlier geothermal, was mentioning mining also in terms of rare earths. I mean, it's funny, like if you look at Kenya in terms of capital coming into smaller countries, it's way ahead of the rest of Africa. If you look at foreign direct investment, it's way behind its neighbors. And almost all of that is because of the inability to get moving on new energy projects and new mining projects. And the ministries are not real close to being able to unlock this. I think if you were able to unlock projects, the benefit in that Kenya is almost all power is clean power. And basically all power that comes online that's new is clean power, right? And especially with geothermal being a regular source of power, if you're, you know, Kenya has a great opportunity here to, I think, become, you know, a hub for some of the data centers. I mean, the ones that are out there already in places like Limuru are pretty quiet. They're very low impact in terms of environment. But right now, Kenya just doesn't have the ability to take on all of the data centers that companies like Microsoft were announcing at the state visit. Like, you've got to be able to unlock that power production further in ways that are done better than maybe it was done 10 years ago. And I think that's really, really the challenge. I mean, there's reasons why they put a ban on new power purchasing agreements, right? I mean, some of those agreements weren't the most beneficial to the Kenyan people, and something has, and you have to make sure that they're more beneficial going forward, but you've got to unlock them, or else that ability to move further into the AI space with data centers as the backbone isn't going to happen the way we plan. Over.
Thank you very much. Jim, going to you, Bashir, on the question that she had also asked you.
Thank you, Dr. Almas. Yours was on policy which we have, the Data Protection Act 2019. We also have Data Protection Guideline 2020, where data collectors, the data handlers, we call them data handlers and data controllers, are supposed to register with the Office of Data Protection for collection of any kind of data, including personal data, some of them very sensitive. So for this case, ODPC usually approves this process. So you apply, you fill the form online, you pay through eCitizen. From there, ODPC is able to assess or review what kind of data you are collecting. And based on the sensitivity of the data, you might be required even to provide more information, especially for the local Kenyan companies. I think the part which is very strict is on where you are maybe Kenyan data is hosted outside Kenya. But for multinational companies, it becomes even a bigger issue because they have to be made some exemptions, and which might maybe take another process. So for that case, Daktari, you've spoken about some of our youths who have been engaged in data collection, and they were able to be exploited because one, I think we don't have, especially for online data collection, we don't have labor laws to guide the same because our labor laws are outdated. So we need to review. That is being worked on by the State Department for Labor and AG's office, because we've noted some of our online jobbers doing online moderations are going through a lot of exploitation, where they are working overtime, they are drained, and then some of the content they are seeing online while moderating is some graphic, the videos is very depressive. I think I've answered, Daktari.
Yes, thank you. I believe you have.
I want to
yes.
add. I want to add.
So we have two additions to that. I'll allow you, Ambassador, to add first since you're leaving, and then we continue with Professor Irake.
Yes, when my sister Mas's question is too early to ask such, and yes, there are some jobs which are not good, but on the area of exploitation, I think the take home was around 60,000. If just that the reason why I support that, for us to grow the business of business process outsourcing, there are some trade-offs, and ideally 60 is even more than a graduate earns in government when they start. And slowly you begin to build into other levels. Those who get, if you study the case of India today is a powerhouse in tech because they started those low jobs, they moved into analytics, now they have moved into manufacturing. The same is happening in Philippines. For us, when something starts, we are looking for civil society to come and say, oh, there is exploitation. What else do they do when they live there? They go home doing nothing. So what you should look at is the long-term effect of what is happening. If someone cannot handle certain material, they can say, I can't handle it, so others can handle it. This is what is happening globally. Even in the US, those who do those who moderate content. So we cannot throw out a child with, as they say, with bath water. We need to slowly grow this. Of course, yes, if you want to call it exploitation, but compare with what a graduate earns when they join civil service or some other jobs. We must get these young people into jobs, then slowly we build them, then we build the economy to a certain level. Even in the US, initially they suffered working in very difficult conditions to be where they are at the moment. You can't walk into some space and succeed and you're driving a BMW or an Audi. So this is what I would say, and I take risk by coming into this to say that. So with that, I thank you for the invitation and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Professor Bitange. We do appreciate your input and this. Can we give him a warm clap even as he leaves? Thank you. You're now free to leave. To you, Professor Irake, on the same.
I'll be very brief. I will respond to the ambassador at the back about making sure that AI and digitalization ensure we have free and fair elections. I can tell you for free, fighting because we have voted, having violence because we have voted is not a technological issue. It is a trust issue. I guarantee you, if you give Safaricom the next 4 hours, not even Safaricom, one of these youngsters here, 5 hours to come up with a voting platform, they will do that. If you see what we do online, from digital, from for example, M-Pesa to internet banking and all those things, it is so big compared with voting. So the question is simply trust and, of course, a bit of hypocrisy. We want other people to be trusted, but we don't want to be trusted ourselves. So if we develop more trust, and I think one of the things I found very interesting in America is how they can be trusted. And that's what is missing in this country. For example, I went and got a car insurance. And I noted the Americans will tell you that if you are married, you get a very good deal. But nobody asked me for a marriage certificate. And nobody told me to raise up my left finger. So if we learn to trust one another in this country, there will be no violence. Number two, transformation is very easy. The young man there. Let's get data. Let's understand the local context. And then we come up with solutions, not waiting for somebody else. And very important, AI and digital transformation will not mark the end of work. That's what some people think. We should not work anymore. We must go back to the basics, like America's Protestant work ethics. People don't work in this country. That's a fact. In fact, young people always keep on telling me I should work smart. I should not work. So who is going to work? We must work.
Thank you very much, Professor. So I believe that is well answered. Magdaline, you had been asked a question.
Yeah, the question about the Tech Women Program. The Tech Women Program is a US Department of State funded program, and they select women who are in tech. There are different tracks. There is the science, there is technology, and I forgot the third one. But I think you can find all the information online on the techwomen website.org. They select 108 women every year, and then they take them to Silicon Valley for support, mentorship, capacity building, and then also you are exposed to different government also officials from the government, from the private sector, and I think it's been very helpful and very as it has helped me, and I'm still connected to the mentors, that the professional mentors. So we had professional mentors, we had the cultural mentors showing you around. It's a very well organized program that, and also you co-create different digital solutions that when you come back home, you can actually implement. And also I wanted to talk about data. Maybe you don't need to answer, but I think everyone is collecting data. And sometimes it is not us Kenyans who are collecting our own data. Every week I get a request to fill a survey and all that. Then we should ask ourselves, maybe other people know us more than we know ourselves. I think we need to invest in data. And also maybe how can we incentivize the private sector, including even big organizations, so that they can share I don't know, anonymously, it's just a suggestion, it's a personal opinion, the data so that the young people can innovate around the data. I don't know how data protection is structured around that. And also on the healthcare, I'll also go the way my colleague has talked about here, that is it a software problem or is it a human problem? So we need to ask ourselves, sometimes when it comes to healthcare, it is more like a trust issue, like he said. So it's also the same thing. And sometimes is it all the challenges that we have, we need to ask ourselves, is this a software problem? Is this a tech problem? Or is it a human problem? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Magdaline, for that. Before I go back to the audience, because due to fairness, I'll want to sample some of the questions from the people watching virtually. I have Catherine Mwini from UON, Faculty of Agriculture, saying, listening to the session, have realized a lot has been done in technology, and I'll forward this to Professor. But in reality, agricultural marketing, little is coming out, a lot of wastage due to inefficiencies. How can this partnership contribute in raising the market intelligence to mitigate food waste and losses, which are not only increasing food insecurity, but also harming the environment? So that will be answered by Professor Irake. Now to the audience, having the gentleman right here and the two gentlemen here. For gender, I have the lady in white and the gentleman just behind her for the next round.
Thank you, moderator. And
sorry, for everyone, make sure you're very concise and straight to the point. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, and our distinguished panelists. My name is Stephen Nyaga. I'm a part-time lecturer at the Department of Diplomacy and International Studies at the University of Nairobi. I would like to direct my question to Professor X and Irake. In actual fact, I thought if Professor Bitange and Ndemo would have just maybe on the platform for a few minutes would have answered this question. The question is, how has the Chinese new startup, the new innovation that is DeepSeek, redefined paradigm in the context of global artificial intelligence superpowers? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Stephen Nyaga. That was very well done. That's how we want to proceed, huh?
Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Peter Mbuva. I'm a part-time lecturer at the Department of Diplomacy and International Studies. I have only two concerns. When you brought the idea of strategy and policy, it actually caught my attention. Henry Kissinger says that separation of strategy and policy can only be done at detriment of both. Now, there's a major issue, because I teach science and technology in international relations, technological transfer. It is not that we are not doing anything. Last year, University of Nairobi launched Taifa One, together with the partnership of Kenya Space Agency, a satellite that is helping farmers get information and data, issues on climate change. But you realize the launch was done in California, which was a great milestone. It means there is an aspect of technology transfer which is not being done. How can we address that? Then my last point, we are now transitioning to—
The first question you're directing it to? Mr.
Yes.
Jim, okay.
Yes. The other one was to Bitange and Professor Irake, my seniors here. Today we are transitioning to competence-based curriculum, CBC. And one of the areas that has emerged is that STEM is being given a lot of focus at a time when we are talking about a huge technological disequilibrium. We even fear, how are we going to address this as a country? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Peter. The lady.
Good afternoon, experts and guests. My name is Josephine Jambi. I'm from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but my question is directed towards maybe Jim. Currently, since May 2024, Kenya and the EU are having discussions around data adequacy so that there can be free data flow between Kenya and the EU, so that this can enhance economies and just digital trade in particular. Do you think, because we have a lot of US companies wanting to invest in Kenya, that it is time to begin to have that conversation about data adequacy so that we can have free data flows and make digital trade more robust between Kenya and the US? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josephine. Lastly, the gentleman right there at the back, and then we'll be back for the last round.
Hello, my name is Brian, computer science student UN and representative of Nairobi School of AI. My question is directed to Professor Irake or Ms. Magdaline, one of the two. Both of them spoke about regulations. I want to specify licensing. Remember a few years ago, we had an issue of how the parliament wanted to license ICT professionals, which is honestly ridiculous, because that means if you don't have a certificate, you can't innovate. And as a student innovator, that would really have damaged my own startup. So how far do you think licensing should be taken, if at all taken at all?
Thank you very much, Brian. I think we'll leave that for Magdaline. Professor has really been overwhelmed with many questions. I will start with the first question that was by Steve Nyaga, and it was directed. Okay, the first question was the online one, directed to Professor Irake. You can combine all of them together. Okay. You will start. Yes, you will start.
No problem with that. These are interesting questions. Catherine asked about agriculture. And is a question that is very, very close to my heart because I grew up in the countryside and I know about agriculture. Whether you talk about crops, whether you talk about domestic animals, I know so much about them. I can milk any cow if you want me to. The biggest problem with agriculture is that nobody wants to study agriculture or work in agriculture. In fact, if you go up across the Pakabete campus, you find nobody wants to apply to do a BS in agriculture. And I've always asked, if people don't want to start agriculture and practice agriculture, then why are you complaining about food prices? So two things. One, let's make agriculture cool. I want young people here. I've been traveling around this country and people are very quick to give me business cards. But I've never been given a business card where the title was farmer. To say I'm at stock analyst, I'm an expert, but not farmer, even if you own 1,000 acres. And the media also gets away from agriculture. So we think being an influencer is probably a more prestigious job. But it's very easy to solve the problem of agriculture, Catherine. Get the market, supply and demand, just link them. Have good roads, good logistics. People who have surplus food will take it where there's deficit. I don't know whether there's anybody here from Nyandarua. Nyandarua? Yeah, that's the only place I found where you give cattle cabbages, they walk away. He will confirm that to you. Yet here in Nairobi, people are fighting to get cabbages. So once you get those two conditions, market, logistics, it will work. Nyaga, DeepSeek was developed with a fraction of what we used to develop ChatGPT. So the same way Chinese has been able to get the car market, BYD and so on, is the same way China is trying to do in AI area. So it has changed the dynamics by using less money, less resources to develop artificial intelligence. And I think that has unsettled everybody. Because if GPT could, not ChatGPT, but DeepSeek could be developed that cheaply, what is the next? So I think China has started a new competition. I would probably call it a race in AI, just like any other race. CBC from Buva, strategy versus policy, technology transfer. You raise so many issues, but I think technology and policy and the strategy must always come together. If you separate them, you not get what you want. Technology transfer is always there, but I think there's an element that we have missing in technology transfer, which is the culture. A phone is not just a phone; it's also a culture. Now, most of you, when you got your first phone, you picked any call. What about today? How many times do you ignore phones? Sometimes very important calls. So let's always combine technology transfer with culture. You are not punctual because you have a car, by the way. CBC, I think there's a good reason to focus on STEM for two reasons. One, if you study STEM, you can go to humanities later on. And number two, all innovations come from STEM. Don't take offense. We have very few innovations from CRE or history. Most innovations are from STEM. So if you want Kenya to become an innovative country, more and more children must focus on STEM. Data adequacy, I think that's an interesting question, and nobody is asking that. Chat GPT and DeepSeek and the rest, when you train those models, where do you get data from? From elsewhere. So our young men and women should be developing content that is going to develop Chat GPT and so on, so that when we use that to solve problems, we get relevant solutions. We get solutions that have data from here. And I think on licensing is supposed to be for regulation, not for control. Unfortunately, in most African countries, licensing is for control, not for regulation. And that is the paradigm shift you talked about. We need to change our mentality. So that if you're licensing people to do something, it is because you want them to do it better, not because you want to stop them.
Thank you very much, Prof. I believe you have answered to all of the questions that were directed to you. And now I'll go to Mr. Jim on the question by Peter. Peter? Yeah. Okay, so you can answer them together.
Yeah, so I mean, technology transfer, that's a tough thing to define, right? I mean, we have just through the major companies that are here and the partnerships that we have, a tremendous amount of technology transfer taking place. If you mean, you know, technology transfer in, you know, satellites and what's going on potentially in that area, I think it's been hard for Kenyan government to go toward the commercialization of satellite launches and the partnership. Of course, you know, KSA is still part of Ministry of Defense. Like, there are a lot of countries, I think, not just us, China, Europeans, that would like to do more in that space. I don't see it as a technology transfer issue so much as just unlocking regulatory processes and figuring out how to get it done. I think that'll happen. I think it won't just be with the United States. I think it'll be with many countries. But that's something that that's just been a constraint on Kenya. I mean, there should be much more happening down there, in not just in Manda Bay, but in, you know, drone and other launches that you could do at higher altitudes. I mean, we also talk a lot with the Kenyan government on strategic controls. I mean, the fact is that if we were to move toward higher end manufacturing here, let's say there were higher semiconductor, you know, manufacturing in the country, there would need to be some strategic controls that are in place in a lot of the countries that were mentioned before, like Philippines, Costa Rica, et cetera. So, I mean, there is a certain amount of expectation on that as well. But I think just in general that the amount of interaction, if I'm not answering your question about basic technology transfer in the tech space, then let me know. But I do think that technology transfer overall has been really, really strong and a strength. There was also the question on data adequacy and negotiating with the EU. I mean, data adequacy is the EU's term. It's not really our term. So we wouldn't necessarily negotiate agreement on those standards. We were found to be data adequate by the EU in 2023. I guess it's good to be found as adequate. It seems weird to say that. But as a result, you know, we have a certain framework with the EU going forward, but we've always focused really on cross-border data flows and our definition of privacy. So our discussions with the government have happened more in that lane. And so I think that's where the discussions will continue. I mean, with the data commissioner's office and others in the government, those discussions have been going on for a couple of years now, and we're not quite where we want to be. But I think that What we will keep discussing will be a little bit different terms than how the EU defines it. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Unique, did I miss anything there?
It's home. Awesome. So I think Magdaline to answer the last question, and then I take 2 more questions from the panel.
Yeah, about the policy, I think we have an ICT practitioners bill which keeps coming up. We always mobilize ourselves to try and raise the issues that that we have with the ICT practitioners bill, and I think also the focus is it's focused on licensing the fee. It's usually focused on the fee more than creating an environment where the young people could thrive. But also that said, I think policy, the pros, and we have different, of course, of course, government needs to regulate also so that, there is fairness. We need also secure data and also protect also consumers and everything. That's why regulations are there. But also sometimes it's stifle innovation and also increase the costs. And we need that to go hand in hand, where also maybe government needs to make it a bit more inclusive, maybe more public participation to be done. And even the startup bill I think there is also a lot of issues, even understanding the startup, the definition of startup, even in our local context, and also the fact that they are also focusing, it's like double registration. You register as a company, and then now you will have again to pay a fee to register as a startup. So it's kind of double registration for startups. And I think also we talked about the tax holiday for when you are building a startup is an experiment. It can either work or it doesn't. And we need to enable our young people. How else would we solve some of the challenges that we have if we don't create an enabling environment for young people to innovate and to work on that? And then also there is the issue of the gig economy, which is rising and rising. I think 70% of the gig economy is done by US and China. So you can imagine the other opportunities that are still there. So if we continue as much as we want to come up with different policies and different frameworks, which is justified, because also young people also face challenges that the data challenges that you are exposed to different content that might not be appropriate for you. And sometimes the content which is appropriate for us, appropriate for other people might not be really appropriate for us. And and also the gig workers, the only thing in our constitution that recognizes gig work is the short-term consultants, where, the 5% and everything. But we've not really recognized, are the gig workers, are they permanent employees? Are they contract workers? It is not really, we don't know how to classify because it is an emerging issue. It's an emerging issue that, that's also how technology comes in. The technology is dynamic, it keeps changing. And, we need to also have policies that are dynamic, also keep changing with any other technology that comes in. And I believe that the government should really work towards working together in collaborative efforts, also bringing together different stakeholders. And sometimes we didn't create some of these technologies. So it has also to be collaborative, both internationally, locally, regionally, all of us sitting together so that we come up with technologies, or we come up with policies that that do not stifle innovation, that also enables the young people to innovate and come up with different technologies. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Magdaline. We are pressed for time, and unfortunately, we'll have to stop here. It's already 12:15, so we can find a way of getting to talk to our panelists even as we interact over the break. I'd want to invite you to thank our panelists by giving them a warm welcome even as they go to their seats. Thank you very much. You can head over to your seat. Thank you. Thank you to all. I invite Dr. Winnie to take over from here. Please let's clap for them even as they go to their seats until they get to their seats, please. They're still not there? Not yet there? Thank you very much for your engagement once again. Thank you very much for your engagement.
Wow, what a discussion! What a discussion! This is the vision behind the Africa Center, having such discussions, because we understand sometimes we can be in our little tiny niches, the diplomats in their diplomats niche, the government official, but this is exactly what we have in mind. Before we say goodbye and we then have an opportunity to exchange with each other, I want to just again welcome a very important partner who has worked with us at the Africa Center for the Study of the US when it comes to putting together this program, 60 years of diplomatic partnership. And that is the US Embassy Public Diplomacy section. This is public diplomacy, for the diplomatic, those who are doing IR. This is true public diplomacy, bringing university community, government, the embassy, the tech, the entrepreneurs together to discuss in one common voice. And so permit me to welcome Madam Susan Wirungi, who's coming to the front. Give her a round of applause as she comes. And Susan will be assisting us in gifting our panelists because they've taken their time. We have something small. And so we want to begin with James. James, thank you so much for coming. I know you're part of the embassy. So thank you. A round of applause for the US Embassy for this event. I also want to thank Mr. Bashir. Please come to the front so that we can gift you something small, a hamper from the US Embassy to say thank you. Karibu sana. Jim, will you join us to the front? Yes, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I don't know, just shake hands.
Okay. Camera.
I've talked enough.
Maybe we'll be at the very middle. I'm very sorry for, yeah. Okay, go to the middle. Thank you very much. A round of applause. Yeah. Yes, Professor Irake, if you mind, coming to the front. Thank you, Prof. A round of applause for Professor. Yes, Magdaline, if you don't mind, coming to the front for a small hamper. Could be money, who never know, you never know. A round of applause for Magdaline. I know Bitange and Ndemo is not here. Is there anyone I've left? Yes, the moderator, Stephanie. A round of applause for Stephanie as she comes to the front. Yes, Stephanie, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. And let me also welcome Ms. Vera Obonyo on behalf of Kenya School of Government to have a small hamper from the US Embassy. Makofi for Vera. Yes, yes. If it's money, we will meet at the back. Yes, so thank you very much, Susan, Public Diplomacy section. Thank you for your work. A round of applause for Public Diplomacy, US Embassy. Okay then, so the event has been had. Let me hand it back to my host. But before we hand it back to Kenya School of Government, who welcomed us so warmly, permit me, as part of the University of Nairobi fraternity, to say thank you for your time, for your engagement in this discussion. I want to say a big thank you to the team at the Africa Center for the Study of the US. And just to mention, I like saying this at the end of every event, the center is made up of volunteers, students who volunteer, mainly students, and members of faculty. So permit me to just for 1 second, give a round of applause to the team at the Africa Center for the Study of the US. Yay, my people. I might get a promotion after this for that, for that round of applause. Okay, thank you. So let me just hand back the mic to Kenya School of Government for them to tell us the way forward. Thank you and have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rugut. And once again, that has been a very stimulating, should I say, panel discussion We've had very distinguished people who've attended, and as the School of Government, we are very honored to have you. Let me just say a few remarks about the Regional Center of Competence for, it's actually Regional Center of Competence for Digital and AI Skilling in the Public Service. And many times, I think one of the cogs we miss in the success of digital and AI rollout is the skilling, the retooling and upskilling of the public service. It is not possible for us to achieve that place we are going without retooling. And so even as we look at that, one of the aims of the regional center is to roll out many programs with partners. I know we are doing something. Microsoft is one of the biggest sponsors, so we are partnering with the US in that. Maybe I just mentioned we are looking to partner with MIT in rollout of some of the programs so that we are able to get people who can deliver quite a few programs. And we are also hoping to bring on board University of Nairobi, the School of Computing, as one of the people that we will partner with. And so we look, and maybe I should say, I'm also a proud alumni of a university in the US where I took my management information systems. So I'm transferring it. And I'm soon to be a proud alumni of University of Nairobi. Professor Irake, you're my supervisor. I hope you're listening to that. And so we really take a lot of pride in a lot of the things that we are doing, not only as a host, but also in building the capacity of the public service in Kenya. And I think with those remarks, I think I would want to, in government service, we say officially close, but I will not do that since I didn't officially open. But we want to welcome you to a photo session right at the front of the Institute. We will start off with our panelists. Of course, we will have a round of photos, and then the rest of us can join for the group photo that we will take. So thank you very much. After that, please don't go away. We have a cup of tea. We have some refreshments right here at the front. So let's take the photos and then come right back for our refreshments. Thank you very much.